devam ediyor olacağım ancak ekrandan Türkçe olarak önemli başlıklarda akıyor olacak. Okay, first of all, we'd like to thank you to be with us today.
It's a pleasure.
Thank you.
Productivity, why productivity? Actually, sustainability and productivity have been gaining more and more importance for the latest decades, let me say. Why is it so? Just to be mentioned with a few points. Today we have 7.7 billion inhabitants in the world, which is supposed to reach 9.8 billion by 2050, as the United Nations states. Furthermore, this means that if we go the way we are today, most probably we'll be needing 60% more food. And this should be sustainable. Even currently, we have almost 1/3 of the inhabitants dealing with some kind of malnutrition. Furthermore, we have the adverse effects of climate crisis, climate changes that is affecting the agricultural, the agribusiness world. Bringing all of these together, we need sustainability and productivity ever more than before. With productivity, it is possible to have more with less while maintaining a sustainable environment. So, after mentioning the importance of productivity, let me start with Peter and ask what strategies and actions does Germany have so that they would maintain sustainable agri-value chains?
Hanım efendiler, bey efendiler, hoş geldiniz. Davetiniz için çok teşekkür ederim. Burada olmaktan çok mutluyum. Maalesef Türkçe bilmiyorum.
Biliyorsunuz gayet iyi.
Therefore, I continue in English, and let me first start to say what a wonderful university and what a wonderful hall, and I'm very impressed by the organ there. So, thank you very much.
Okay.
Yeah, and
we
then
expect you to listen to the organ one day at the concert.
and then yes, sustainability and programs in Germany. Yeah.
Yes.
Let me start to this very complicated topic because it has several dimensions. We have an international dimension by the UN Sustainable Development Goals, 17 of them. We also have a European dimension because of the common agricultural policy that we have in Europe. We have, of course, a German dimension when we speak of Germany, but we also have a regional dimension because in Germany we have 16 federal states that can do, in a certain frame, their own programs. So I will focus on Germany, and there I will start for our national sustainability strategy. This is a strategy, of course, following or based on the aims of the UN Sustainability Development Goals, and we have included their aims into our strategy. It has a holistic approach, which means it covers the whole economy. That means not only agriculture, fisheries, forestry, and consumption, but also the processing industry, the food industry, the trade, and the retailers. So we speak about the whole food supply chain. Mm-hmm. One of the main aims is to make production and consumption sustainable. And I start with the production. We have certain, usually we do our policy with programs and strategies. And in this case, we have strategy to make our production more sustainable and the main program we have is a future program for organic farming. We believe that organic farming is a key to make agricultural production more sustainable, especially when you compare organic farming with the so-called industrial farming. Then we believe that organic farming is much more sustainable. It covers 24 measures such as breeding, organic value chains, etc. The second part, what I would like to mention is animal welfare. That might sound a bit strange for you, but in Germany we have big discussions about animal welfare, and we believe that production with more animal welfare is making also the animal production more sustainable. We have some projects like examples, good practice, etc. And we also have a sort of animal strategy. And maybe not at the first glance you might recognize that the whole supply chain is involved, but for organic farming and for production with more animal welfare, we have to label the products so that the consumers can see how products are produced. And that means you have to trace the products throughout the whole processing chain or the complete value chain. So far, sustainable production. Then we come to sustainable consumption, because consumption, we also believe, is a key of making the whole chain more sustainable. We have a program for making our food better, or especially the nutrition. And there we have an initiative called Inform, where we want to make nutrition more healthy and also to be more physical active. I try to follow this program. You can see the result here. Nevertheless, another strategy, we call it strategy in this case, is that we want to reduce sugar, salt, and special fats in ready-to-eat meals. You might think, okay, the aim might be understandable, but why is the complete food chain integrated? It's usually starting with the consumers or with the processors, but also the retailers in Germany are very often big processors of food, and therefore we at least have the processing industry, the trade, and the retailers, and then consumers, so almost the whole food chain. We have, of course, an initiative to reduce food waste. We call it Too Good for the Bin, and that we want, of course, be reduced throughout the whole food chain. And then we also have an approach we call regional window, which means we want regional products to be consumed because that has short ways from the producer to the consumer. A third group of measures or of strategies is an international strategy that we have. We have bilateral programs, and there is one also with Turkey, and that covers the field of agricultural cooperatives. And agricultural cooperatives, for us, is a key to strengthen the farmer's position within the complete food value chain, as the farmer is often, as we think, the weakest part of the chain. And of course, we also believe that through cooperatives you can produce, if you look at it, more sustainable and more efficiently. We also have international cooperation in the field of research, as research is of course a key that you asked, more efficient, maybe more sustainable. And then we have two programs called Sustainable Palm Oil and Sustainable Cocoa, where the producers are not sitting in Germany, but in foreign countries, but we would like to develop a sustainable chain to increase or to make the position of the farmers in the different countries better. And then last but not least, we also have a special stress on, let's say, digitalization, modern technology, where we have several programs to increase and to develop modern technologies for the whole supply food chain, because we would like to reduce waste, to make the production more sustainable, and so on. And modern technology might help a lot. That's maybe a short overview and covering only the national programs, and maybe not all, but it gives you maybe a certain idea of what we are doing. Thank you very much.
Thank you. At the second session, we'll ask more about what is behind Germany, the world, Turkey, and so on. Actually, you touched a very critical point during the importance of integrating the value chain. Throughout the value chain, more than 1/3 of the food is either lost or wasted. So integrating the chain is really a critical issue in terms of productivity. Çok kısa özetlemem gerekirse, Dr. Bohlen, entegrasyonun ülke genelindeki entegre stratejilerin oluşmasının verimliliğe katkısını, değer zinciri boyutunda işbirliklerinin, kooperatifleşmenin, sağlıklı gıdanın etkilerinden bahsetti. Okay, Kristin, can I ask you the most strategic important factors in terms of leading high productivity in the States?
Yeah, absolutely. And çok teşekkür ederim. Maalesef Peter gibi Türkçem çok iyi değil. Bu yüzden İngilizce devam edeceğim. Ama bu üniversite çok güzel. And again, I studied music, so I also am admiring this organ. It's beautiful.
Okay, maybe you'll come and play it once.
It was lovely. But yes, so like Germany, the United States is also looking forward to sustainability. As Professor Arzu said, in this world, there's increasing population, and yet our food resources are limited, and we're looking at climate change and sustainability and how will we be moving forward in a positive way for global health, global productivity on this planet together. So it's actually interesting because today in Washington, our U.S. Secretary of Agriculture, Sonny Perdue, is announcing a new sustainability, productivity, and innovation initiative with the agriculture ministers of Mexico and Canada. And so they're looking and getting together and working in a North American perspective. And I think we're all realizing that regionalization and international cooperation is key to this, both in agriculture and food chains and trade, in order to continue the sustainability. This isn't going to be an issue that can be solved by one country or one region, but we're going to need to work together. So one thing the United States has in abundance is we have data in agriculture. We have data going back to when the US Department of Agriculture was established in 1862. And it's interesting to look at the data from the US, starting basically from after World War II, 1948, is we've kind of considered the modern era of modern technology and innovations in agriculture. It started after the Second World War. And looking at that data in the last 70 years, from 1948 to 2018, our latest data, we can see that on average, every year, US agricultural production has increased by 1.5%, with meaning in aggregate, in the last 70 years, the US has actually tripled So by 3 times, they've increased our agricultural output. But at the same time, we've also decreased the labor that we're using. We've decreased the amount of inputs that we're putting in, so fertilizers, pesticides, and we've decreased the amount of land that we're using. And the land that's not being used in agricultural production has gone back to forest lands, to natural preserves, to national parks, to barriers against waterways and other climate events that have overall increased the land health in the United States. And so using this data, we can see how innovation over time has helped the United States increase food production, but also actually increase our environmental resources, increase our sustainability, increase our position, our land use and environmental protection over time. I would say also another thing that the United States has learned is that education is very important in reaching the farmers and talking with them. And in the US, we have a specific program that I think is somewhat unique, just the way it's developed historically, called the Agricultural Extension Program. And this is a group of universities that was established by the government, again, back in the 1800s when different states were being established across the United States. And the federal government wanted to put a university basically in each state that would address technology and science and agricultural innovation so that people in those areas could go to this university and study these sciences that they could then use in their local state, in their local area. And these universities have been established, and now some of them are very famous, like the University of Minnesota, Texas Agricultural and Machinery University, Cornell University, the University of California. These all started as this idea that we should have local universities that could provide this technology and innovation in science and research. And now out of these local universities, which have now advanced, they also are doing engineering and new sciences and classics and liberal arts, of course, but they still have a core focus on agriculture and science and innovation and technology and research especially. USDA, the US Department of Agriculture, partners with these universities now and employs what we call extension agents, and these are employees of the government, but they are a liaison between these state universities in each of these regional areas and the farmers in small sections of the states. And they go out and they do training and advice. They bring research and technology. They have meetings with farmers. They give demonstrations. They show new technologies, new crop developments, drought-resistant wheat in Kansas, for instance. They look at different types of innovations in grapes in California based on, again, the region that crops grow well in the United States. It's regionally based. And along with these demonstrations, they also give advice on business practices and the best way for farmers to come together as a collective in order to perhaps finance new machinery, invest in these new technologies. And as the farmers work together, that also gives them more power, as Peter has said, because farmers on their own, sometimes in this value chain, are the vulnerable key players. If it's one farmer trying to decide what are the best crops to plant, how can they get the best inputs, how can they finance this, how can they sell their products to the market, one farmer, one family, one group may not have a lot of power, but when they come together, they can talk about these issues. They can have advice from these government agents who are also supported by researchers and professors at the university who can show them the labs, who can show them the research. They try these things locally and see what works. And it's not a forced issue, it's more educational. But by and large, we find that the farmers adopt a lot of these new technologies because they see how well they work. They look at the marketplace, they see that this is working for them to work as a collective, to perhaps pool their resources and invest in new machinery, to invest in financing as a group, and that they become a more powerful unit, able to sell their products at the marketplace at a higher level. And so I would say those are some of the key innovations in the United States that we found over time have really played a large role in agricultural productivity.
Thank you. Actually, what both of you say really support and complement each other. Aynı şekilde Kristin'in sunumunda da dinlediğimiz başlıklar diyeyim. Öncelikle bölgesel entegrasyon, yani ülke entegrasyonun da ötesinde bölgesel entegrasyon. Yıllar içinde veri kullanımının önemi, veriyle verimlilikteki artışları takip etmek, o yönde ivme kazanmanın etkisi, katkısı. Bunun yanı sıra ülke bazında yine değer zinciri boyutunda da işbirliği yapmanın önemi. Örneğin tarımla ilgili tarımsal eğitimlerdeki yine işbirliği, bölgesel işbirliği, bir yandan da aynı şekilde yerel politikaların da izleniyor olması. Okay, in our second round, then let me ask you some questions about Turkey. Turkey has a high potential in terms of food production, but based on what we talked about at the first two rounds, maybe you can add something about what can be the factors that would complement the productivity level in Turkey given the potential.
Yeah, thank you very much for the second question. I'm quite honest. I think it's difficult to say from a German point something to the Turkish agricultural sector, as there are big differences between the two sectors. And therefore, I would like to try another approach to answer the question. I would like to outline a bit how we implement our strategies and programs. As I said, as I think, when you speak about a strategy, it's maybe easy to write, and it's maybe this much of work. But if you want to implement it, it's this much of work. Yeah? And therefore, we in Germany always look at implementation of programs. That means we have to monitor the program. We have to find indicators, how we measure it, what the results are. We have to have statistics, as Christine said, very important. And we have to be in the position to qualitatively and quantitatively analyze the results of the program. And if necessary, then to adapt the program to make it more efficient, more sustainable. So what we have to have in Germany, and what we have is a very detailed statistics to calculate the results or the influence on the income when we have a program or a strategy. And that we have to know, because we have to know what the position of the farmers is and what it will be when we introduce this program. Will he be positively affected or negatively? Will his income increase or decrease? Christine already mentioned research, which is in Germany also very important. We have different kinds of research. We have universities, agricultural universities. We have institutes, not only national, also regional. We have private research companies, and we all have integrated them in a so-called cooperation of researchers, where the results are exchanged between the different partners of the research, and they are also connected to the industry, so that the results and the progress that they make are also, or that the industry knows about it and gets the latest developments. Advice extension, or whatever you call it, very important. Yeah? If the farmer has a problem, he can go in Germany to national or region. In this case, it's the federal state that will manage it. They can go to advisors and ask what to do, as Christine outlined. We also have advice with cooperatives or with private dealers. And we also have private specialists who can advise farmers but then you have to pay. Others is for free, but there you have to pay. So the private advisors have to be very good that farmers pay for them. I mentioned already cooperatives, this bilateral project that we have with Turkey, in my opinion, quite efficient and successful, and we continued it. We have just extended it for another 3 or 4 years. As I said, cooperation is better, is very often better as to do something alone, and that's what in Germany, or what Germany has to offer. We have about 50% of the whole turnover in agriculture that is produced by cooperatives. And the cooperatives, with their additional services, are able to also influence the rest of the market, as the competitors also have to deliver the service for the farmers, otherwise they wouldn't get the products and wouldn't be able to sell them. Yeah, so these points are very, very important in Germany to get the things implemented, and that's what I would like to outline. And because the Turkish agricultural sector with a relatively small structure and very many farms is a bit different than, let's say, in comparison to the European agriculture, at least in some parts of Europe. It's difficult to say when there's something interesting, let's just take it over. But you have to find a way to adapt it to the Turkish situation. That's what I would like to say, and thank you very much.
Thank you. Çok özet geçersek, öncelikle artan Türkiye ve Almanya arasında artan işbirliklerinden ve memnuniyetten bahsedildi. Onun dışında uygulamaların izlenebilirliği, ölçülebilirliği ve izleyerek geliştirilmesi. Bunun yanı sıra da kooperatiflerin etkinliğinin, verimliliğinin toplam verimliliğe önemli bir etki yaptığından bahsedildi. Belki Ayşin Hanım da daha sonunda bize kooperatiflerle ilgili durumu özetlemek isterse Türkiye'de çok kısa sonunda. Okay. So maybe the same question, but let's make it more general. Let's talk about sustainability and food security in terms of the globe, maybe. What are the final things that you would like to say on that?
Yeah, so I think, again, I'm going to bring up data, which Peter has talked about and I have talked about. But just to say, I think it's important to know the data. I think as Professor Arzu noted, we have an issue in the world. We call it in the US the billions problem, I'm not sure, where we have about 1 billion people who don't have enough food. And then we have about 1 billion people who are having health problems because of obesity and too much food. And right now in the world, we are producing enough food, but we can't get it to the people who need it. It's not the right kind of food. There's transportation issues. It's not that we can't solve these problems, but how are we going to solve them? I believe that we can. So in the US, we actually put out, every month we have a report that's called the World Agricultural Supply and Demand Estimate. And we do surveys, extensive surveys in the United States, but also from our offices around the world, we report on major crops, grains, cotton, major fruits and vegetables, different types of meat. What is the production levels in the countries? What is the demand? What is the consumption in these countries? And is it for human food? Is it for animal feed? What is the trade? What countries are importing a lot of food? What countries are exporting these foods? Which countries are consuming them domestically? What are the stocks? Are some countries stockpiling them? Why? For what reasons? And along with that, of course, goes what are the weather patterns? What is the harvest? And knowing that, we can kind of see and predict a bit what is the upcoming year, at least, so much as you can predict in the future for food and harvests. What is the global food supply going to be and demand, and where might there be issues? Is there going to be a grain shortage in Southeast Asia? If that happens, how will countries try to compensate? And I think having this data and information is one step that we can try to foresee and stop as much as possible, or give tools to the policymakers to try to make informed decisions about what they need to do to continue to supply food for their countries in certain commodities, certain sectors, look at the price increases or decreases and try to compensate for that so that there aren't great shockwaves, great droughts, great famines around the world. Now, of course, that doesn't work because we don't live in a perfect world, but I think it helps. We're in a better position now with the data. US does what other countries do this data, the UN does this data, has these analysis, than we were 50 years ago, where suddenly there would be a famine and no one would know how to respond and we didn't know, or in the past, the Soviet Union bought up all the grain in 1974 and nobody knew, and then how could the markets respond? And so I think this global conversation will continue on sustainability, on innovation, on what technologies are helpful, what does the market demand. In the United States, for instance, we have demand for organic products, but we also have demand for cheaper, safe products, and we use tools like biotechnology and gene editing to provide those to consumers who don't necessarily have the extra money to buy organic products. They're trying to feed their children, and that's what they can afford, and that's the type of food that's available and safe and common in use in the United States. So I think a combination of these tools of innovation, of working together, of looking at global demand, I think looking at international trade, and seeing what products, what commodities can countries produce that make sense for them, that they have an advantage in because of their land, because of the climate that they have, and then what things does it make sense for a country to export or import and use that way. It doesn't make sense for every country to try to produce every commodity in the world. That's not going to work. It doesn't work geographically. It doesn't work for climate. It doesn't make any sense. But I think there are ways that we can better cooperate and we can focus on things that are more sustainable, that improve our own environments, that increase food security, even if that does mean importing feed so that we can have a domestic poultry industry, for example. And these kinds of thoughts to be looked at more at a global level, an integration level, and what works for food safety, what works for health, what are scientific advancements that we can use. And I think maybe having a bit of a global focus and conversations between countries instead of sometimes being so narrowly focused on one particular sector just in our country or just in one region may not be the key that is going to solve these problems globally in the future.
Thank you. Gıda güvenliği için ülkeler arası anlaşmaların, ülkeler arası stratejilerin, işbirliklerinin, iletişimin olmasının önemi, her ülkenin kendi sorumlu üretim politikaları, bunun yanı sıra uluslararası ticaret politikaları olması ve her iki konuşmacımızın da vurguladığı gibi aslında panelin de özeti, verimlilik için, sorumlu üretim için, sürdürülebilirlik için entegrasyon, İşbirliği, inovasyon, teknoloji, Ar-Ge, sektörel boyutta, ülkeler boyutunda, hatta küresel boyutta. Teşekkür etmeden önce Ayşin Hanım bir şey söylemek istiyor musunuz? Konuşulanlarla ilgili, Türkiye ile ilgili.
Şöyle açıkçası
about Turkey related to what you have been telling us.
Konuşmacıların özellikle bu uluslararası iletişimle ilgili konusuna değindiklerine çok katılıyorum. Kooperatifçilik konusunda örnekler oldukça başarılı. Bizim çok fazla yol kat ettiğimiz bir alan değil. Aslında dışarıdan bakıldığında şahsi fikrimi de içine eklemek gerektiğinde çok kooperatifçiliğe uygun bir yapımız varmış gibi görünüyor. Hani birimizin başı bir belaya girdiğinde koşturup bir tas çorba götürme konusunda çok iyiyiz. Ama iş tarımda kooperatifçiliğe geldiği zaman ortak hareket etmemiz gerektiği zaman gerçekten çok başarılı örneklerimiz yok. Kooperatifçilik alanında o nedenle isim değişikliği de yapıyoruz. İşte birlik diyoruz, kooperatif diyoruz, farklı isimler de takıyoruz buna. Ben burada çok başarılı örneklerin olduğu ülkeleri takip ediyorum. Akdeniz Üniversitesi'nden Selim Hoca da aramızda. Coğrafi işaretli ürünlerle ilgili ciddi çalışmalar yapıyoruz. Evet. Orada Fransa'da çok başarılı örnekler görüyoruz. Aynı ürünlerin, aynı benzer üretilmiş coğrafi işaretli ürünlerin tek elden kooperatifler yoluyla nasıl pazarlandığı, nasıl değer bulduğuyla ilgili. Ülke olarak burada çok gidilecek yer olduğunu düşünüyorum. Bununla ilgili yeni çalışmalar var ama çok detaylı biliyorum dersem yalan söylerim. TİGEM içerisinde bir miktar daha fazla boğulduğum için benim dışarıdan görüşüm kesinlikle yapılacak çok iş var. Kooperatifler eliyle yapacağımız çok iş var ama bu portal dediğim örnek de aslında buna destek verecek bir şey olacak. Ben bir de konuşmacılarımıza ilaveten şunu da söylemek istiyorum. Her ürünü ülkemizde illa üreteceğiz diye zorlamamamız gerekiyor. Çünkü toprak yapısı buna çok uygun değil. O nedenle Afrika ülkelerinin de çok bakir toprakları var. Bazı ürünlerde orayı da kullanmak suretiyle hem o bölgede istihdam ve tarımsal kalkınmanın artması hem de bazı ülkelerde üretilemeyen ürünlerin orada üretilmesi yöntemiyle dünyasal balansın da daha iyi ayarlanabileceğini düşünüyorum.
Çok teşekkür ederiz tekrar. Sağ olun. So I'm thanking both of you.